Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive, and welcome to our Westchester Weekly Update. Today is Monday, December 4th, and I'm very happy to be back at the podium with you. I'll be joined by Ken Jenkins, our Deputy County Executive, and we're going to give you an update on a number of issues that are pending right now in Westchester County. We'll be joined in a couple of minutes by the mayor of the village of Ossining, Rika Levin, who will talk a little bit about that terrific community, as we always have members of our municipal partnership joining us for each of these updates to talk about another little piece of the county. Peter McCart, who is our environmental guru here in our administration, is going to be in to talk about the New York State Green Purchasing Program, and we're going to mention a little bit about where we are with the county budget coming down the home stretch. Our bond rating is one of the issues that we want to touch on. Ken is going to cover flu shots. Time to get a flu shot if you haven't gotten one already. And then we have a couple of other stories that are interesting. And I'm going to close with some impressions of the trip that I made to Israel last week with other elected officials here in Westchester County. But we'll start at the top. As I mentioned, we have every week a municipal partner, colleague join us, a person who's involved in local government at the village, the town, or the city level. We have 45 incorporated municipalities, 20 villages, 19 towns, and 6 cities. And they're all of different sizes. There are villages that are larger than some of the small cities, and there are towns that have multiple villages in it and some that don't. It's a mixed bag, but each one is unique in its own way. Today we're going to take a look at the information on the village of Ossining, which is within the town of Ossining, but in its own right has 30,000 people in it. Mayor Rika Levin, who's with us today, is in her second term as mayor. They have 2-year terms for the mayoralty, and she's been a good friend and a welcomed partner on issues that relate to the village of Ossining and to the county of Westchester. So let me now introduce the mayor of the village of Ossining, Rika Levin. Madam Mayor, thank you very much. We're happy to have you here again.
Thank you. Always nice to come back here. First of all, always to start with a big thank you for the county executive, deputy county executive, who have always been great supporters. We've become a small, sleepy village and have grown to 30,000 plus on about 32 square miles. So it's a densely populated community, changing demographics. Great location to live in. I always am inspired by the village that I've lived in for over 30 years and raised my family. And the village has gone through some changes, and that's what I want to focus on today. I'm going to bring forth about 8 initiatives that we're looking at for 24, 25, 26 that I didn't speak about last time I was invited here, so I just wanted to spotlight those initiatives. First of all, a big thank you. One of the things that we changed when I became mayor, along with the village management and village staff, is changed strategically from being a river town that's in a sleepy format, a bedroom community, to really looking to our partners at county, state, and Congress to really help us with grants for a village like ours, so that the burden is shifted across many of our partners rather than just our taxpayers. And that has played out well in allowing us to really improve on infrastructure, the economy, the development, a little bit of tourism, et cetera, that I'll be speaking about shortly. So the 8 major initiatives that I really want to speak to right now is infrastructure improvements. The village operates and owns the Indian Brook Water Treatment Plant located in the town of Ossining in Westchester. It is unusual that a village like ours has its own reservoir, has its own water source, but it is exceedingly important on how we manage clean water for our community. I can refer to many cases in the national forefront, including in New Jersey and Michigan, where it is very difficult to really look at the water systems, et cetera. So we are rebuilding our entire our water plant. That will be an initiative that's at about $100 million, and we are hoping to get 30 to 40 million from other resources. That project has been in play for about 5 years now, and we hope to see shovel in the ground somewhere around 2024. So that is around the corner. We have been looking at planning, design, etc., but really at the end of the day, it's all about reliable drinking water, which is at the foundation of all of our initiatives. We also are looking to revitalize, and have been doing so, at the waterfront. The Ossining Downtown Waterfront District is going through transformative changes. Every river town looks at its waterfront. So we are looking to rebuild our Main Street commerce area, which leads to the waterfront, and connect our waterfront. We're looking to bring in more entrepreneurs, and we're looking to create greater parking capacity to help both our small businesses and those that want to play, live, and work in Ossining, who spend a lot of their time on the waterfront. It's a beautiful spot. Also located in our downtown, which is walking distance to our waterfront, as it is in many of the river towns, near the intersection of the Olive Opera House, is a lot of new stores. We are looking to build a multimodal parking structure. Multimodal because it's not just parking for cars, EV stations, lots of green effects on our parking, but mostly to increase parking so that both the housing environment and our small businesses really can benefit from the structural changes. We will also be putting lots of EV stations for e-bikes and e-scooters and e-cars, including for both residents and for the businesses. Another project that we're looking at is to renovate, and frankly, if I were to choose one, this is my favorite project, personally, which is the community center. Reason being, the community center in many of our communities here in Westchester is the heartbeat of every community. It isn't just the downtown. Community centers are places that are open, in our case, 7 days a week, from the very young to the very old. It is a central location for residents to play and live. It's a central location and address for the school system to benefit from the pool and from all the other the entire infrastructure. We are totally redoing the Caputo Community Center into a state-of-the-art facility for intergenerational recreation and learning. On a short story, I do get most often calls about the community center. Every time we are in the process now of redoing the locker rooms, we haven't done that in 20 years, get lots of emails from the community. I also get lots of emails about people whose senior parents, because we do have multi-generational people living in our community, get a lot of calls about how we take care of seniors through food programs, the pool, yoga classes, etc. And it goes across all of the socioeconomic levels. It goes across from the immigrants to the people who've been with us for 4, 5, 6 generations, of which we have many of those families. So to me, that is an area that's going to be greatly improved. We've already started that. That started a month ago, and it's going to be a 2-year project. We're also going to look to housing. Housing is always an issue. It's been an issue on the governor's plate. It's an issue at every level of government, right down to the local level, where the rubber meets the road. And we have 2 major projects going on, an all affordable mixed income, mixed use property with 109 all affordable units and a community center within it, a community space and possibly retail or commerce, depending on which way we go. Lots of community engagement on that project for a couple of years now. And we have a newer 74 unit mixed use senior affordable property on a property that's been vacant for really more than a decade. And that was also with the help of the idea from the county. So I thank the county for that as well. And the shovel in the ground will be happening soon. The important thing to note here is that the housing stock is going to be increased and improved in Ossining. A relatively old community incorporated in the 1800s, so it's always great to incorporate new housing into our everyday living. We're looking also to make our community much more walkable and bikeable. We are redoing Route 9 along with the DOT from the state. As I said, the strategy for the village and the vision is to work with various agencies in order to improve parking, walkability, livability, and the small business environment. And we're also looking at, we're looking at e-bikes as we're becoming an incubator for e-bikes and looking to see how a river town can be used to increase the use of e-bikes in an affordable way for the community. So those are some of the things that we're looking at. A little farther down the road, we're looking to Route 9 and to reduce the lanes of Route 9 where people are speeding, have made it very unsafe. And frankly, from a socioeconomic point of view, has split our village from the downtown to the upper area. It's not really an uptown and downtown, but it has split our community in half in so many ways that are there's no upside to the way it's done that. So to bring the community back together, which it was originally planned, and to help the businesses on Route 9 to have more parking, the state, we are working with the state for a number of years, but we believe the shovel will be in the ground, if not at the end of 24, certainly in 25, to create more parking and to create a one-lane road with a center lane turn, and also fix some of these five-way intersections that we have running right in the middle of our town. Collectively, these projects are the core elements for a carefully planned strategy. We are not reacting to changes, as oftentimes I think the elected officials have to. We're not reacting to environmental catastrophes across the country or social issues. We have engaged the public for a number of years. We are carrying through a vision and a strategy that really hits the major categories that I described, that really focus on economic development, housing, public safety, sustainability, recreation, that a town like ours and a village like ours can look at and plan for the next 10 to 20 years with some of the demographics that are shifting. And we are even taking into account the increase in remote workplace as we look at some of our middle of the town, as we redo the center part of our town for recreation, for community, in our community center, et cetera, to really take into account even remote working, which looks like it might stay with us for a while. I thank you so much for the time. Looking forward to hearing about your trip in Israel, which I've read so much about. I'm glad that some folks went there, not just talk about it, but actually went right into the war zone. So I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. That's Mayor Rika Levin from Ossining. We're very appreciative of her partnership and her hard work in her village. And I am going to touch on my recent trip to Israel at the end of the update, so we cover some of the grounds that we want to cover. I'd like Ken Jenkins to join me for the next announcement. A little bit of good news. Always nice to have good news in our announcements. We are prepared to announce today that once again, Beeline bus fares will be suspended, in this case, for the holiday season. We are going to be lifting any fare on any Beeline bus. It also includes the paratransit system, effective Saturday, December 16th, and that will be inclusive through and including Monday, January 1st, which is New Year's Day 2024. This is the second year that we've suspended them over the holiday season. We've also suspended them over the last 2 summers. And that fare box reality helps fund the system, but we're able to cover those costs through other dollars and cents that we've achieved through the year. We're going to be ending our year with a surplus in our county budget, so it's possible for us to do this. We'd love to do it year-round. We'd love to do it at all times, but the cost of running the system does require us to charge fares. So the fact that we were able to do it during the summer, and now we're able to do it during the Christmas, New Year holiday season is good news. The Beeline bus system carries the second largest number of ridership of any bus system in the state of New York. Obviously, New York City is the number one ridership. And as it's been calculated, over 65% of Westchester County residents live within a walking distance of a Beeline bus stop. Some number of people are regular Beeline bus users. Some of them use it to go to Metro North rail stations, take them into the city. Some use it to come to work every day, depending on where you live and where your job is. Obviously, we have a more extensive coverage in the larger cities and the larger concentration of populations, which are generally at the 287 level and south of 287. There's less of that service in northern Westchester as we have less concentration of population. And if you're going to have a fixed line route service, you need concentrations of population to go from point A to point B in order to make it worth our while. But we're very happy to make this a freebie over the course of the 2 weeks right around the holiday season. This will fall into the Kwanzaa season as well, and leading up to New Year's Eve. So there'll actually be New Year's Eve buses up to a certain point in time. I'm not sure with the wee hours of the morning, but plan your New Year's Eve wisely. But nonetheless, we're happy to be able to make that announcement, and we think that's going to be very good news for individuals economically, for those who ride the buses, those seniors who use paratransit, that all of that is good. We have a few other announcements we're going to make, and then we'll bring Pete McCart up. I'm going to ask Ken to cover the seasonal focus on getting your flu shot. I got mine, but Ken, make the case for everybody else.
And we both got ours right in the beginning. I wasn't as brave as you to be able to do both shots at the same time. But the reality is that we have our health department coming in this year with the ability for a free full flu shots in December. So if you haven't gotten your flu shots yet, flu season is up upon us, and Westchester County Department of Health is going to offer free flu shots by appointment this month to encourage residents to stay healthy. Those flu shots will be given for all ages 3 and up on Wednesday, December 13th and Wednesday, December 20th from 2:30 to 6:30 p.m. in the community room of the Yonkers Riverfront Library. That's in Yonkers City in Larkin Plaza, right downtown, right across from the train station. So again, from December 13th to December 20th, 2:30 to 6:30 in the Yonkers Riverfront Library. Appointments are highly encouraged and can be made by going to our county website, westchestergov.com or westchestercountynewyork.gov/health. Walk-ins will be accepted while the supplies last, so we want to make sure that you do have that appointment to be able to make sure that when you go down there that the flu shots will be available. Again, flu shots will also be given for our younger residents, 6 months and older, at health department clinics by appointment on Thursdays in Yonkers and on Fridays here in White Plains from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. while supplies last. Again, go to the county website, westchestergov.com/health, to be able to make those appointments. Those are by appointments only, 6 years old and up, and older for the young folks to 3 years old, again, at our clinics in Yonkers and in White Plains. You can also get a lot more information about flu shots and find where you can get a flu shot if you're not able to do those dates on the 20th and the 13th by going to vaccines.gov. In the U.S., we have more flu cases between December and February, but the flu can actually linger on through May. And by getting this flu vaccination, you're going to give yourself an opportunity to prevent illness, or in the unlikely event you still get the flu, it'll be a much milder situation. So again, let's get those flu shots to December 13th and December 20th, free for our county residents, 2:30 to 6:30. Back to you, George. Right?
Thank you. And before we get to a more serious topic, let's have a little fun. This weekend was the high school football championships held in the Syracuse Dome Stadium. It used to be called the Carrier Dome. And it is still the home of Syracuse University football team. And it is a big thing for those who play high school football to get to go to the Dome for a state championship. There's different class levels, depending on the size of school, from AA all the way on down the line. And Westchester County now is the home for not one, but 2 state championship teams. We're very happy to congratulate the Somers High School Tuskers. The Somer Tuskers won Class A football boys championship this year, state champion in Class A, Somers Tuskers. They beat Whitesboro by a score of 35-6. That's a big victory for the Tuskers, and we send our props to our friends in Somers. The other team that won a state championship is from the community that I've lived in for the last almost 40 years, the city of Rye. Rye High School Garnets have won the state championship in the Class B level for students, and again, that's the size of the high school that drives it. They beat on Sunday Maine Endwell in the championship game in the Dome, 28-7. Got to see some of it with some of the folk locally at Kelly Sea Level in Rye. They stayed for the whole game. I had some other events. Ken and I have to go around the county. But it's a big victory for Somers Tuskers and for the Rye High School Garnets. We're very proud of the Garnets. We just had the Rye High School girls win the state soccer championship. So for a school that's known primarily for its academics now, 2 big athletic accomplishments. Now, just to celebrate the occasion, I made a bet alongside of State Senator Shelley Mayer and State Assemblyman Steve Otis, both of whom represent the city of Rye, as do I, and I've served in those positions previously, with the Broome County Executive Jason Garner, my colleague, also Assemblywoman Donna Lopardo, who was a classmate of mine when I served in the Assembly, and State Senator Leah Webb. And we made a challenge that our team was better than your team, and we won. So at stake, we have a gift basket filled with locally sourced products. So that means we're going to have locally sourced products from the Broome County, which is Binghamton is the major city in Broome County. I've been in Endwell in Maine. Those are communities on the western side of the county, north and western side of the county. I don't quite know what they're going to bring us, but whatever it is, we won, so we're going to get it. And we're going to enjoy dinner, hopefully, with County Executive Garner and some of those other legislators, and we want to share that joy with all of our friends in the Rye High School family. Superintendent Eric Byrne has been a good friend. We worked together during these COVID years in a much less jovial manner, and as we tried to get through a pandemic, and now we're getting through the joy of having a championship. So congratulations to the Rye High School Garnets. Thanks for winning me a basket of something or other. And congratulations to the Somers Tuskers. We have those championship rings in our back pocket. And of course, as we enter the basketball season, you know who I'm rooting for basketball. I'm rooting for Rye, but I'm rooting for Mount Vernon High School. So, I have my two hometowns that are both important to us. So congratulations. And congratulations to all the young men who participate in high school football. It is a tough sport. It's a physical sport. And whether you won a championship, you played, even if you didn't have a particularly good team, you learn certain things in sports. Both Ken and I played some sports. He's better than me. But you learn certain things about teamwork, about discipline, about keeping your physicality at a peak level. And so every young person, boy or girl, that participates in any of these sports are doing something for their long-term benefit as adults. And we're very proud of all of them, whether they won a state championship or not. But we're proud of Somers and Rye because they won state championships. Next up to bat, we're going to invite Pete McCart, who's got a couple of kids who have played sports in their day as well. He's going to talk to us a little bit about the New York State Green Purchasing Program. And Pete, who's a resident of Eastchester, please, Pete, come on over, has been for the length of our administration of 6 years, right at the focus point of all of our environmental activities. This was a position created by the Board of Legislators prior to our administration taking over, but Pete has really helped define the position: sustainability, for energy, for conservation, and the environment, and he has been at the point of all of our different things regarding electric vehicle charging stations and a host of other things. So, Pete, tell us a little bit about the New York State Green Purchasing Program. You have some notes?
I do have some notes. I'm going to talk about a few other things, too.
They're all yours.
All mine. Well, good afternoon. I'm here to announce that Westchester has become a New York State green purchasing community. We are joined by only 6 municipalities across the state, and that's including Croton, Hastings, and White Plains right here in Westchester, which is awesome, and just 2 other counties. So it's not an easy thing to do. It took us a little while to do it, but we did do it, and I'd like to thank Martin Connolly and Finance Commissioner Karen Hablow for their assistance on making this happen. It's an easy-to-administer green procurement program for our operations that will be continuously updated by New York State and the Green New York Council. Although the county was already doing a pretty fantastic job with our purchasing of sustainable products, we can always do better, and this will enable us to take advantage of over 75 green specifications written by state government experts to ensure that the products we purchase have a much lower environmental impact. With the leadership of the county executive, this is just one of many initiatives and innovative programs that we've created to benefit our local and global environment. Of course, when it comes to composting, we have the Residential Food Scrap Transportation and Disposal Program, of which 25 municipalities now participate, including the wonderful village of Ossining. And we also have our Compost Ed. This is a fully operating composting facility, education facility in Valhalla, processing 2 tons of compost per week. That was created to show municipalities how easy and inexpensive it is to create their own facility. In fact, White Plains has already created a residential compost facility, modeled on Compost Ed right here down the street on Gedney Way. Speaking of recycling, in addition to adding textiles and mattresses to our recycling regimen, the good folk in the Department of Environmental Facilities, thank you Lou Vitrone and Melissa Rotini, have now launched Recycle Coach, which is a free app for residents and their municipalities. It's similar to the Recycle Right app that 14 municipalities have been using, but in addition to Recycle Coach being free, it also has this really cool enhancement. You can point the camera on your phone at a product, and it will tell you how environmentally friendly the product is, and it'll actually show you how or explain to you how to dispose of it at the end of its life or recycle it. Once a municipality signs up, all of their local trash pickup schedules and other pertinent information will be on the apps for the residents to refer to. Lastly, I would like to highlight the brand new Westchester County EV Charging Infrastructure Grant Program, which is not really the name of it, but that's what I'm calling it, wherein 50% of the design, installation, and purchase of EV chargers is covered by the county. And I think this will come into play for the mayor here in Austining. We've covered 50% of the design, installation, and purchase of the chargers, and the chargers have to be on municipal streets and parking lots and openly available to the public. It's not for their own fleet or for commercial use. It is for the public. And you couple this grant with the other government incentives out there, and the chargers are basically almost free. I'd like to give my phone number. Call me, 995-2905, for info on this grant program or anything else that I've talked about this afternoon. Thank you very much, County Executive, as always.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Peter McCart, our Director of Sustainability, and thank you for your hard work in this area. So we'll cut on a couple of other things that we think are pretty important right now to share with you. First of all, in the last 2 weeks, we have in our administration met with major Wall Street bond rating agencies that you routinely look at the fiscal stability of governments, county governments, cities, town, villages, states, federal government, and so forth. And they issue bond ratings. And those bond ratings represent the credit worthiness of these entities in the same way that your credit score gives an idea of what your credit worthiness is, and the better your credit score, the more easily it is for you to borrow money and to borrow it at rates that are favorable to you as a borrower. Our local governments of all sorts must have a borrowing capacity, because we can't do all of the different capital needs that we have out of the revenue that we get in every individual year. So we have to do just what you would do at home. If you're going to build something onto your house or make some major improvements, you borrow the money, then you pay it back over time. You pay interest on that, and you're able to get the improvement right away, which is necessary. We do the same thing as governments. But these bond rating agencies, Standard & Poor's, Fitch, and Moody's, are very exacting in what they're looking for. And they're very quick to downgrade you if you do not show fiscal policies that they find to their liking, and they take their time before they upgrade you, because they want to make sure, and it's logical for the people that are going to buy these bonds, that they're buying it in a stable governmental environment, that there isn't going to be an oscillation from year to year that jerks up or jerks down. Some of the things that governments have done when they are in difficult situations that create credit-worthy problems. You borrow money to pay for ongoing operating expenses. Imagine if you have to go into your savings account every month to pay your monthly rent or your monthly mortgage payment. You wind up making a one-shot sale in order to balance your budget. You determine that you have something that you can sell, you sell it once, the money you get from it covers you for that month. Well, what do you sell next month to cover the same systematic expenses that you have? Or you borrow to pay for things. In the case of a government, you borrow money to pay for pension costs. Those pension costs are going to be assessed annually each different year, so you can't keep borrowing on top of borrowing and refinancing. That is bad fiscal policies, like a house of cards that will collapse. There's other things that are like that. You can't borrow if you're going to pay back tax refunds that are due through what's called certiorari process to major commercial entities that say we were overtaxed, you have to reimburse us, and we go out and we borrow. We can do those things legally, but it's bad fiscal policy. We also look to determine, they look to determine, as we do ourselves, how much money have you saved for a rainy day? What does your reserve fund look like? And what percentage of your ongoing expenses does it represent? The lower your savings, the closer you are to fiscal disaster if something happens. You know that in your own life. If your engine transmission were to break and you have to replace the engine and you have nothing in your savings account, what do you do to get the car rolling again? Because you need to have your transportation. So in the governmental standpoint, these agencies look at all of these issues. They look at the way the budget has been constructed. Is it a balanced budget? They look at the political climate. Is there stability in the political world around it so that they can rely on the ratings that they give? And we're very happy that we've been upgraded by 2 of the 3 rating agencies and kept at a relatively high rate by the 3rd agency. Keep in mind that for many, many years, Westchester County had a AAA bond rating, which is the highest bond rating you can have. That bond rating was lost in 2018 when the rating agencies looked at the fiscal policies of Westchester County for the year closing at the end, December 31st of 2017. Our administration came in on January 1st, 2018. We inherited the budget that was adopted previously, and we began to deal with issues that we found. We found that there were union contracts that were multiple years out of date that we had to bring up to date, and we had to figure out how we were going to pay for it. We had to deal with a host of delayed capital projects, things that were pushed off that could not be pushed off any further. And we had to make some tough decisions on the revenue side of the budget. In that very first year, we had to deal with a lack of revenue, and we had to stay tax cap compliant and raise property taxes slightly in the 2% vicinity. But over time, we've shown fiscal conservative policies that have paid off. We had revenue improvement in a couple of different key areas, and we also made sure that we did not overstaff the government. Even though we budget for positions, we didn't fill all those positions with all of the requisite costs that go with it. So over the course of now 5 years, we have shown a certain stability, and the rating agencies came in and they talked to us and the other executive team, and the end result was that we maintained a high level of AAA1 at a positive rate from Moody's Investor Services. Standard & Poor's gave us a positive outlook on our AA plus statute, and Fitch Ratings raised us back up to the AAA bond rating. This means that we will spend less money in interest when we go to the bond market to borrow because of that heightened status, and it also represents, in essence, an important statement of who we are in running this government. We have done a host of things that we're very proud of, from what we just announced with buses, the electrification of the bus fleet, which Peter McCart, very active, involved. We took diesel buses out of the streets of our cities, which with the pollution that it generates, and now we have them replaced by hybrid electric buses that are environmentally sound, use less energy, use less fossil fuel energy. We've had a host of other different issues, large and small, the capital projects we've improved on. All of those things, from Memorial Field in Mount Vernon to the Spring Ridge pools to the Miller House, we've talked about these 100 times at this podium. But we did all of that with fiscal policies that did not raise taxes. We won 4 straight years with reduction in the county property tax levy, the general levy. This year we have a flat general levy. Now, as I pointed out when we announced what our proposed budget was, that does not include some of the special districts. The special districts, the sewer districts, refuge district, do not include all the communities. Sewer districts are different. Each one includes different combinations of communities, and they each have some different obligations. And there were some small increases in some of those special districts. But for the general tax levy that goes across the board, that remained flat from 2023's budget to the new 2024 budget, which we'll talk about in a second. So all of this fiscal stability has now been recognized by bond rating agencies with the upgrades. We're very proud of that. I want to thank publicly our budget director, Larry Sewell, our finance director, Karen Hablow, and of course our operational team led by Joe McDonald, our director of operations, and Emily Saltzman, our deputy director of operations, who were responsible to the greatest extent in all of the different choices and priorities that come into budgeting and come into the way we go about managing our money. It is a difficult process to do that in a government the size of Westchester County. We have approximately 4,500 employees, over a $2.4 billion budget. We're nothing like the size of the state of New York, but we're larger than all the local governments in Westchester County, including Yonkers, which is a very sizable city and is the most comparable to we are. They have over $1 billion budget in the city of Yonkers. But for Westchester County at $2.4 billion, to manage that money and now over a number of different years and get a bond increase, that is major news. We hope to keep that as we go forward. Some of the budget that we'll talk about in a second could be affected by the state budget that's yet to be adopted in April. We don't know what they'll do. The state is like dad, and if dad decides to lay something on you, your choice is to accept it. That's the only choice you have. But in terms of us doing our work, getting this AAA bond rating is really good news, and we're very proud of it, and we're thankful for the professionals that help make that happen. But you should know that. There's always difficult news out there to share, and sometimes there's good news, and that's unalloyed good news. A quick budget update before we start talking a little bit more about our parks and some of those other activities. We are now, as we're speaking today on Monday, December 4th, nearing the end of the 24 county budget review process. The budget is before the Board of Legislators. They have an active day today where they're going to be assessing the budget and determining what additions of revenue and additions of expenditures that they want to have in the budget for its final review and adjudication. At the end of the business today, 12 midnight, when the clock hits 12 midnight, Ads Day, as it's known, has ended. And not a penny more of spending or revenue can be added to the budget. And from that point forward, till the adoption of the budget, which is scheduled for next Monday, the 11th, all that can happen would be deletions of various revenue or expenditures. Now, if you delete an expenditure, you reduce the size and scope of the government. But if you delete a revenue, then you're impacting on the other side. You're making the budget unbalanced, and you have to do the similar thing with the expenditures. So all of that is yet ahead of us. We have some work to do today. There are some areas in which the Board of Legislators will discuss and come back with changes they want to see to the budget. I've treated it as this is the process we go through. The legislatures, which we were both members of, we were both chairman of the legislature at various times in our career. This is the proper check and balance that you have in government. You do not want a runaway executive, and you don't want a runaway legislature. You want both of them to be in some harmony. We'll see what the board comes up with today and how we deal with it tonight. And then they'll have a public hearing, I guess, in a couple days more on Wednesday, the 6th, which will take a final test of the public pulse to the budget with the additions in it. And then at that point, they can make whatever deletions are necessary. When the budget comes to closure on December 11th, which is what the plan is, it's usually a long day, it then comes to the executive, to my desk for signing. I have the power, as many executives do, for a line item veto. I could, in theory, veto the overall budget. That's not going to happen. But I have the ability to line item veto out any item of spending, or revenue for that matter, that's been added to the budget. So that is a power that I have. However, we try not to get into those situations. That's what you see happening in Washington, D.C., when they have these last-minute resolutions for continuing the government to keep it from staying open. And sometimes that happens at the state when budgets are late beyond a certain point. They need to pass continuing resolutions to keep the government operating by authorizing a certain amount of spending in a certain amount of time. We have never had that happen in Westchester County. I do not anticipate it happening this year. I expect we'll close the budget in the next week, perhaps slightly more than that, but hardly imaginable much beyond that. The budget will be in place, balanced, and ready for January 1st, which is the beginning of the fiscal year. But this process is playing out as we speak. Ken, I don't know if you want to make any other comments about the budget and the process that we're in.
And certainly the Board of Legislators has been doing a tremendous job with Jewel Williams-Johnson as the budget chair. She'll be dealing with the public hearing on Wednesday, the 6th, as the county executive has said. But there's been a lot of due diligence, 2 other public hearings and committee meetings going on for the last 2 weeks, plus the capital budget, which they'll adopt on December 11th as well, that they have been working on that from October because that's presented earlier. But it's a great process for everyone to continue to work hard on. And again, with the new legislators, because there's retiring legislators, that will happen at the end of the year. We'll have new folks coming in January 1st that were elected. And again, this will make sure that the budget goes forward. The date that it has to be done by is December 27th. And as County Executive Latimer said, it has not got to that place ever in so many years. So again, this is a great opportunity, making sure that the fiscal stability continues to be there, and the taxes have been level for the last 5 years with reductions in 4 of the previous years. It is an amazing task by everyone working together through this process, led by our county executive, George Latimer.
Thanks very much, Ken. Next week when we have our update, we're not finished with this update yet, but when we have our update next week, we will have advanced a little bit further in this budget process. We'll be able to give you an update next week, how the closeout looks. And then there is a process that happens after we sign the budget, and that is an assessment of what the assessment roll looks like spread out across the county, and then an equalization rate that's applied by the state, which will give the actual percentage of increase, decrease, or level funding on the property tax levy, because the property taxes in the macro levy are portioned out by the 25 municipalities. The 6 cities and the 19 towns that each get a share of that. And depending on what happened to the assessment roll in each community, some communities have an increase in their assessment roll, some have a decrease. They'll pay a percentage of the total tax levy based on what percentage of the total, the aggregated assessment rolls will be when you put them all together. So even with a zero levy situation, some communities might have a slight uptick, some will have a slim downtick, and we'll see how that process plays out. We'll talk more about that either next week or the week after that in the updates as we proceed along, but that's sort of where we are today. I'm going to ask Ken to cover a little bit about the parks information of what we have going on, and then we'll come back to hit a couple more points before we call it a day. Ken.
Thanks, George. And certainly in our county park system, we're going to continue on doing the work around the county from the nationally accredited park system. We know right now we have Winter Wonderland, so the Westchester Winter Wonderland drive-through and holiday light extravaganza, which is led by the Parks Foundation. It happens to be in the county park at Kensico Dam, and that will be an opportunity for you to take a 1.2-mile drive through Kensico Dam Plaza and see it dazzle in thousands of lights. It's open most nights, and the times vary. It's going to run through December 31st, and you can get those tickets for that. It's $35 per vehicle, and all of the revenue that comes from that goes right back into the county park system. The Parks Foundation puts every dollar right back into the county park system, and that's been a tremendous partnership, and that's how these things work best, when you have those partnerships. But it runs right down from every day at winterwonderland.com, so it's Winter Wonderland, so it's WestchesterWinterWonderland.com, and you'll be able to have that opportunity to get involved and watch the Winter Wonderland Holiday Extravaganza. Always kicks off right during County Executive's birthday week, and again, we certainly make sure to wish him a happy birthday when we turn on the lights, and then we continue to go forth with our partnership with Westchester Medical Center, WMC Health, and Robeson and Con Ed, and so many others that make sure that the partnership works for that particular thing, and it's a fantastic opportunity to do that. Our Westchester Knicks are doing well. They're playing in Westchester County Center. They'll be playing this Wednesday, December 6th, and they'll be playing on Wednesday, December 6th. The Knicks are going to take on the Raptors 905. That's the Raptors, the Toronto Raptors G League team. Get details and tickets for that. County Center Biz, countycenter.biz. /event, Westchester Knicks versus Raptors. You'll be able to see that there. And again, it's a great opportunity to see these up-and-coming NBA players in the developmental league, as well as those folks that are rehabilitating themselves from the NBA, from the pro level, to make sure that they're getting themselves back into NBA shape as they come off of injury. So again, great opportunities, and we have people in the NBA right now that have come through the G League and have been on the Westchester County Center floor. And again, you can go out and you look and you can touch and feel them. It looks really great, and it's a good opportunity. December 7th, from 10 to 3 p.m., back at the Lasdom Park and Arboretum up in Katona, the Holiday on the Hill annual train show continues on. That continues on. The train show component of that continues on till December 31st. However, you know there's no fun with a holiday train show at this time of the year, because at the end of the train show is Santa. Santa only goes until December 24th, because it got some work to do on December 25th and getting around there, but that stops, but the train show goes on. It is a wonderful train show, again, to go up to Lasdon Park and Arboretum up in Katona, and again, you can get those tickets by going to lasdonpark.org. We just want to mention one more thing before I pass back to the county executive to wrap things up. We have one opportunity with the Caramore Center. All right, so the Caramore Center, we have an opportunity because Caramore is a non-profit, all-season cultural hub in Katona with a rich history of presenting exceptional life experiences, and it's like music experiences. The musical offerings include globally established artists and emerging talents in a broad range of styles, including classical, chamber music, jazz, American roots, new music, and global music. It's renowned for its summer season on 80 acres of beautiful gardens and grounds. Its mission is to enrich our community through innovative and diverse musical performances, mentorship programs, and interactive educational programs for students. It's certainly something that the county supports through Arts Westchester, and we can hear a little bit more from our Caramore Center for Music and Arts CEO, Ed Lewis. We have a video, so we'll throw it over to the video.
In a time of deep division and conflict, the arts help promote civil discourse and support thriving and empathetic communities. I want to thank County Executive George Latimer and the Board of Legislators for their support of arts in Westchester County and in Arts Westchester specifically. Arts Westchester is the thread that connects us to help all in the community have access to the arts and experience the benefit that the arts provide, which allows communities to thrive and not only be livable, but also lovable. With support from Arts Westchester, Caramore has been able to move forward a key initiative in its 5-year strategic plan to be more welcoming and reflective of the communities in the county through our free programming. Over the past several years, Caramore has annually held 3 free large-scale community events. We've expanded our community partnerships, and through ensuring curatorial control, we've been able to make sure that these programs are meaningful and relevant for the communities that we seek to serve. Our grounds are free and open to the public during our peak summer season through October. We have free parking and free shuttle service from the Katona train station. We work to ensure that the artists for these programs are the same high caliber as those we present during our summer season. And we've expanded our artists to include more global music artists, as well as artists with a broad range of lived experiences in all of our genres, but in classical music specifically. While there's more work to be done, I again want to thank our county executive and the Board of Legislators and Arts Westchester for their support that has enabled Caramore to be more inclusive and equitable. Thank you.
We want to thank the CEO of Caramore, Ed Lewis, for the outstanding job. Things that continue on. They have so many tremendous programs there. It is an absolutely lovely location to be at. And again, Caramore Center for the Music and Arts. And again, another great part of Westchester County as a whole. It's not a county government facility, but it's another great place to be. Finally, before we turn over back to County Executive to wrap up things up for this particular update, we want to remind everyone that we are in the final throes, the annual holiday gift drive for our holiday season. This particular gift drive is extremely important. Barbara Sabatier and the folks in the Department of Social Services have been doing this program for many years, and that purpose is to have unwrapped holiday gifts for nearly 1,000 people cared for in our Westchester foster care system, whether it's in protective services as well or preventive services or even homeless programs. So you can help brighten the day for the holidays for some of Westchester's most vulnerable children by donating a new unwrapped gift at one of our gift drop locations by December 15th. Or you can also make a financial donation to the Westchester Child Welfare Holiday Fund. These gift donations are requested from babies up to age 21. People forget a lot of times about our older young folks that are involved in the foster care system. Please, no stuffed animals or any violent toys. Monetary donations are graciously accepted in the form of gift cards, whether it's also by Zelle, cash, or checks made payable to the Westchester Child Welfare Holiday Fund. And those can be dropped off at any locations of any of the social services locations in White Plains, Mount Vernon, Peekskill, or Yonkers. Those are our district offices for the Department of Social Services, as well as here in the Westchester County office building here in McKinley office building here on Martine Avenue, or right across the street at 85 Court Street, which is actually another Department of Social Services building and central location. Again, this is really, really happy. Just like all of us, those young folks would love to make sure that there's additional joy through the holiday season, and you can do that, again, by an unwrapped gift or toy, by having gift cards, monetary contributions, but again, anything that you could do is really helpful, and you can drop them off at any one of those locations. Again, very important. County Executive kicked that off, and we have our Sheriff's Department, our Public Safety Emergency Force bringing in some additional toys that will help that out. But every little bit helps, and you certainly can make a monetary donation. I'm going to turn back to the County Executive to close things out for this week.
Thank you, Ken. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Ken Jenkins, our Deputy County Executive. We will continue to update you on what's happening with the county budget. We're happy that we've been able to suspend Beeline bus fares for the holiday season and all of the other things that we've reported on. Last week, I had the opportunity, along with a delegation of other elected officials, to travel halfway across the globe and spend a very limited amount of time on the clock, something in the vicinity of about 55 hours in the state of Israel. The trip was sponsored by Westchester Jewish Council and UJA, and it involved a number of other elected officials, State Assemblywoman Amy Paulin, Board Chairman, Board of Legislators Chairman Vedat Gashi, the Minority Leader Margaret Kunzio was on the delegation, and the Majority Whip Tyree Woodson Samuels was on the trip, all three county legislators, and then joined by three municipal officials from New Rochelle, White Plains, and Greenberg, along with a couple of other individuals from the organizations. We spent really a whirlwind time doing a number of different things. We had the opportunity to hear from some of the families who are still waiting for their family members to be released. They're being held hostage by Hamas. And they had a press conference in Tel Aviv, which was highly emotional. We watched the press conference and participated in the press conference. Had the opportunity to go to Hadassah Hospital and talk to a couple of the individuals who were injured, wounded during the fighting at some of the kibbutzes in the southern part of Israel on the border of Gaza, and how they reacted to the circumstances of what they were facing. We went to a distribution center that is trying to collect voluntary materials to help those families who are now displaced. Many of the residential areas that are near Gaza have now been emptied out, and even where people weren't injured or taken captive, that they've moved to hotels in the Jerusalem and Tel Aviv area to protect themselves from whatever might happen going forward. And as would be any other individual that's displaced, they have nothing. They're living in a hotel for some extended period of time, and there's an effort made to help those individuals. I had the opportunity to briefly meet and talk with the President of Israel, Isaac Herzog. Now, the President of Israel is not the head of the government. The Prime Minister is. We did not meet with the Prime Minister, but we met with the sort of head of state, the symbolic head of the Israeli legislative process and government. We chatted for a few minutes. We also met with the opposition leader, a gentleman by the name of Yair Lapid, who briefly served as prime minister last year during a series of political turmoil issues that are happening in Israel, and he is probably going to compete for the prime ministership in the future, heading the party Yesh Atid. And we talked, candidly about what was happening in Israel. We spoke from the position not as individuals who are responsible for foreign policy from the United States of America, but as interested public officials to understand what was happening there and how it was happening there. We talked with a number of other individuals in the comings and goings that we have. No one invited us to cross over into Gaza or the West Bank. So we stayed where we were welcomed and invited, and we had the chance to speak to people. I viewed this overall as part of a huge jigsaw puzzle, and the problems of the Middle East have been going on for thousands of years. They will go on well after my time on this planet is over. The difficulties of trying to parse what the role of the United States should be in these things really belongs to the President of the United States and his chief executive support, and Secretary of State and others, Secretary of Defense, and also by the members of the Congress of the United States. But in the same way that we here in the county government, I have certain responsibilities as county executive, and the Board of Legislators has a certain check and balance, so too does the Congress have a voice and a check and a balance. But the decisions are made by the President of the United States and his team, and we can only have one foreign policy at a time. You can critique it, you can agree, disagree, and when election day comes, you can vote to change the people that are in office. But at this stage of the game, President Biden and his team has a certain policy of how they're dealing with Israel. I'm well aware of the protests that are going on. I know that there's different points of view, and even the terminology between these different groups. You fight over words because one word signifies something that has a certain value attached to it if you use that word and not another word. And we're hearing words tossed around like genocide and apartheid to try to help frame the issue in a certain light that one group has or another. The single most moving part of the trip for me, and I remind those who don't know that I'm Roman Catholic, a Christian. So I'm there with a sense of connection as a person who's aware of what's happening in the world, and as a person who in this jurisdiction deals with many of our neighbors and friends who are Jewish and have a great emotional attachment to Israel, and an attachment that is a deep bond, and in many ways the same bond that I have through my heritage to the land of Ireland and the land of Italy. I did not grow up in either Italy or Ireland. My forebears did, and that means something to me. And when I see the turmoil in the Middle East, I do have a relationship to that, and that is how I felt about the troubles in Northern Ireland when those things were happening, and there was terrorist attacks on both sides of the Catholic and the Protestant side. And I would read in the newspaper about how Catholic children or Catholic men were killed, and then on the other side, how Protestant men were killed, and the atrocities on both sides that reflected terrorism on both sides of that issue. Ultimately, I'm gratified to know that now there's been peace in Northern Ireland, that those who are dead cannot be brought back to life. My great-grandfather and my grandfather were both born in Northern Ireland, County Fermanagh, one of the 6 northern counties. It is never easy to be a Catholic in Northern Ireland, but today we have peace. We have a cessation of terrorism and a cessation of war, and a 2-state solution. Where Northern Ireland is operated differently from the Republic of Ireland, which are the 26 counties in the southern and central part of Ireland. We're not here to talk about Ireland. We're here to talk about the Middle East and the battle between Israel and Hamas as they are placed in the Gaza area, and what the role of the Palestinian population is, and what are the role of the populations around it, in what situation Lebanon is in, which had a civil war. And ultimately, Hezbollah, which is an affiliated entity with Iran, has won out and now rules Lebanon. And what's happened in Syria, what's happened in Iran and Iraq and all these other countries that are in proximity. Most moving part of the trip is when we went down to kibbutz Kfar Aza, and that is a kibbutz which is not far from the Gaza border. I had not seen a kibbutz, and I had a prior trip, 2 prior trips to Israel. The best way I could describe it to my friends is I felt like I was going into a townhome complex where there are lots of different residential areas, and they sort of have common area with it. And when I went to this particular kibbutz, this was a kibbutz that was attacked on the morning of October 7th. And the signs of that attack were everywhere. There was devastation that to me looked as close to what it would look like if a hurricane or a tornado had gone through a complex. The devastation in the housing units. There were some houses some units that were burned to the ground. All of them I saw bullet holes, and that is not something I see in my everyday life, a bullet hole in a wall. There are bullet holes everywhere. I saw on the ground a child's toy. I saw the kind of little device that you would use, not device, but a little holding area where you would put clothes on it to dry it out outside. And those are signs of domesticity that existed in this kibbutz before the morning of October 7th. I'm told that there was significant loss of life, people murdered that day in that kibbutz, civilians living their lives, who found that at their doorstep came a person whose mission was to kill them. There was no discussion, there was nothing else. It was a mowing down of individual human beings. This is what began what we're dealing with now. There have been other issues that people reference over a long period of time. Ever since Israel was created in 1948, there's been an animosity between Israel, a Jewish state, and its neighboring states, which really do not want Israel there. There's been peace over the years. There's been some negotiations after some of the wars. Israel and Jordan, Israel and Egypt had gotten to some degree of peace, but those pieces that peace was paid a high price. Yitzhak Rabin was murdered, assassinated, and Anwar Sadat was assassinated. The factor of death exists in the Middle East at every turn. While we were walking through the kibbutz, and we were just walking, we had on protective vests. I've never actually worn a bulletproof vest before, and I had as we were walking through with the other members of the delegation. I heard over my head a loud bang! And I've seen more than one 4th of July fireworks situation, but usually there's a beautiful, pretty light and lots of those little pops and bangs. It was a singular bang. As I looked up at it, and there's a group of us who were kind of walking around individually, I looked over at the person who was the individual who was at the kibbutz, and I looked at them. We said no words. I looked at his eyes, he looked at my eyes. And what I was looking at him was saying, was that an incoming missile? And was that an Iron Dome anti-missile missile that intercepted it and created that bang? And his eyes told me, yes. You've just seen what it's like to see an incoming missile in a place where you're walking. I've had many of my friends talk to me before my trip, and very happy to see me back after my trip, and to the other members of the delegation. And we thought about these things because we were going into a zone where there was conflict and war. Although while we were there was the humanitarian pause that came from a period of time in which Hamas released a certain number of hostages and Israel released a certain number of prisoners that they had held. In the hostage release, women and children, I think some seniors were also released. The Palestinians that were released were people that were held in Israeli jails, and they were men. They were men who went back over to do whatever they will do now as part of the Hamas situation. Hamas was insistent upon not releasing any men who, in theory, might go back into the military on the Israeli side. So it was an exchange of individuals, an uneven exchange in terms of numbers. Far more Palestinians were released back to Gaza than were hostages released back to Israel. But nonetheless, we're appreciative that lives were saved, lives were not lost. We came back from Israel early in the morning, and we had some people to drop off throughout Westchester as we made our progression back here to White Plains, where most of the rest of us had parked. And as we were in some bumper-to-bumper traffic jam going through Mamaroneck, it was school time and people going to school, the natural tendency of us as Americans to be irritated over every little thing came to pass. Here's a long line, 15 cars up to the light, 2 cycles, we haven't really moved much. And then I thought to myself as I looked to the sky, it's the exact same sky that I saw over Kibbutz Kfar Aza. The difference is what irritated me, and perhaps the other people on Myrtle Boulevard as we were going 1-to-1-to-1 leading up to the traffic light at Weaver Street, was pretty minimal in comparison to what the people in the Middle East are frustrated by. When they look to the sky, they don't see rain that could ruin my Sunday. They see the potential of a missile strike that could end my life. This is what much of the world is like. And I don't purport to have a George Latimer plan for peace, but I do understand how lucky we are, how fortunate you and I are. And as I've just reached my 70th birthday, I'm rather happy that I've lived this long. I would rather be 35, who wouldn't? But I'm happy that I've survived this long. I hope to continue to survive and do whatever I'm going to do in a productive way. But I realize how fortunate we all are and how angry a society we've become, how willing we are to treat each other as the other, how willing we are to defriend each other on Facebook, how willing we are to take extreme positions and argue them to the point of physical altercation. There are people out there who look forward to some type of civil action in the United States between those who hold one set of views, those who hold another set of views. And there are extremists on both ends that are prepared to say democracy should disappear if it stands in the way of me imposing the vision that I have for this society. While I was in Israel, I had the chance to walk through Yad Vashem, which is the museum that is set aside to study the Holocaust. And by circumstance, because I'd been in Washington, D.C. the week before, I had a chance to walk through the Holocaust Museum. And that is horrific. There's no way to describe what the Holocaust was in the systematic extermination of the Jewish people in Europe under the hand of Hitler. That's why I say you use the word genocide. Be very careful what you're saying, because what genocide was gas chambers and people who were herded into a building for the purpose of being killed. That was what that genocide was. It wasn't a war, that it was a systematic extermination of civilians within the society that you governed. Hitler came to power through small d democratic means. The rules of Germany governed how he was picked to be chancellor, and within 1 month of his becoming chancellor, the Reichstag, which is the equivalent of the Congress, burned. And so the legislature could not meet. And they gave, in that moment, extraordinary executive powers to Hitler, which he used. Within the second month of his leadership of Nazi Germany, he began the process of boycotting Jewish businesses. And in 1933, it ultimately led to Kristallnacht in 1938, and it led to the opening of concentration camps, which they called the final solution. Hitler wrote about these things in Mein Kampf. And Mein Kampf was written in the 1920s when he was imprisoned, briefly, for what he had done in Munich. And he laid it out in Mein Kampf. There was no ambiguity about how he felt, and it was clear for everybody to see. He came to power, and he did exactly what he said he was going to do. Exactly what he said he was going to do. He was finally stopped by the Allies, by the United States and Canada and Britain, and by Russia, which finally had to stop. And in the process of stopping the German war machine, there were many innocent civilians that died. There were many innocent civilians on the side of the Allies that died, and there were innocent civilians who were residents of Axis countries who were not the leaders of Axis countries. They were not the ones determining Göring and Himmler and Goebbels as the direction of the country. They were people who live like we live. They come, they go, they raise their family, they want to have a meal, they want to celebrate a birth, and they want to mourn a death in their family. And they lost their lives as it took the American allies to move across Europe from Normandy to Berlin, and as it took the Russians to move from almost being beaten by the Germans right outside of Moscow all the way into Berlin. 12 years. Hatred took hold of Germany and caused deaths in Germany and outside of Germany. I have a bachelor's degree in history. That does not make me an historian, but it makes me a student of history. And what I read is that history will repeat itself if people do not understand the lessons that it teaches us. What I realized returning back to the United States of America is we have a fabulous country, a free country where you are free to say what you want with the obligation that it should be true, but not the requirement that it be true, and that you have the right to associate or disassociate with whoever you want. That's freedom. You have the right to vote for a person or not vote for a person. That's freedom. But those tools were used in Nazi Germany to subjugate the people under an ironclad ruler. And that ironclad ruler destroyed human beings' lives, millions of them. I came back from my visit to the Middle East, and I'm fortunate for that. I did have a chance to see some of the sites that are holy to me as a Christian. Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where Jesus is buried. The current version, because Jerusalem was devastated in ancient times and rebuilt, so it's not the actual old city of Jerusalem, even though it looks old to us, it's about 500 years old. It's not the actual city at the time, but we walked through the Via Dolorosa, which is the Way of Sorrows, and where they have Stations of the Cross. Those of us who are Roman Catholic, during Lent, we'll go to Stations of the Cross. There's 14 stations, and it talks about the path of Jesus from the point up to crucifixion, which is sacred to those of us who are Christian. And I walked through those streets, symbolic of what that meant. There's a lot to think about when you come back from Israel. It's not, going to the Mediterranean and looking out over the water. It's not, I had a marvelous dinner in Tel Aviv. I went down to the Dead Sea and I put some mud on my face to, beautify myself. Those things are not happening in Israel right now. There's a sadness in that country. There's no jingoist spirit. We've seen that spirit at other times in the United States when we've been attacked. Let's go out and get those guys. Let's show them a lesson. We didn't feel any of that. I didn't feel any of it. My colleagues, as we talked about it, didn't feel any of that. There is a resignation that this is a very serious moment and things are in the balance. And I come back stateside to know that there are protests at the Christmas tree lighting in Rockefeller Center. There's a protest at the Brooklyn Bridge or in Grand Central Station that shuts down those facilities because there are people that are protesting the United States' support of Israel. It's a very complicated situation. It's a very moving situation. It is important for us as county officials to do the things we're here to do. Ken and I are required, along with the legislators, to do the things that we're committed to do. We make buses free. We balance a budget. We get a good bond rating. We fix the infrastructure of the county. We work with mayors and supervisors to do the things we have to do. But all of that is under an iron dome of democracy that protects us. What if that iron dome fails? What if through the small d democratic process, we wind up with a totalitarian leadership that is prepared to do away with democracy? I saw that in Yad Vashem, repeated from the Holocaust Museum. There's a lot to think about. I've got a lot to think about. You've got a lot to think about. And now as we close this conference, you have time to think about it. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.